Yeah, now we're live. Okay. My name is Phil Barnhart, and this is the October 25th, 2021 meeting of the Bond Oversight Committee of the Lane Community College. And we're at our preliminary items, and I think this is the point at which we call the roll. Is that right? Myra's not sure. We do have, I do quite certain we have a quorum because we have very nearly all of the members here. So shall we go ahead?
Yes, please call the roll.
Mara, can you call the roll?
Yes, everybody, give me a second.
Okay.
Okay, Sally Storm. I see Sally.
Sally's here, but she's muted.
Okay,
She can't get off of
we
mute.
can't hear you, but I see you.
Yes.
Okay. Brad Black,
I am here. Good afternoon, evening, I guess it is.
Phil Barnhart,
I'm here.
Jennifer Rickert,
Here.
Marianne Hansen,
Here.
Roger Bennett,
Here.
Claire Dannenbaum,
Here.
Renee Dorjean,
Here.
Jeremiah Van de Grift,
Here.
Alan Boss.
Here.
I don't know if that's how you say your last name, and I'm sorry.
You were right on. Good for you.
Okay, great. Henry Luvert.
Levert, Henry, I don't
don't
think
see
he's here
him.
yet.
Okay, and Kevin Cronin. I also don't see him. So we're missing them two currently. If they come and join the meeting later, I will remove them from the absent list.
Thank you. All right, so we have a quorum and we're ready to proceed. The first item on our agenda is to review and approve the April minutes. I assume everyone's had a chance to read them. Any comments about the April minutes? I've read them. I think they actually reflect what we did. Any other comments? Is there an objection to the approval of the minutes as printed? Anybody object? No one objects, so the minutes are approved. Let's go on. Preliminary items for the board from the Board of Education. Who is going to present those?
Is Marge still with us or did she step up?
I'm here. Items from the Board of Education. I'm not quite sure what we were looking for.
Well, it's 1.03.
Yeah, I think,
The three items that I see on my agenda are the term year, which in our preliminary meeting, I think we agreed should be the calendar year since our first meeting was in January, and a membership update, and our report to the board. And perhaps you might explain a little bit about those other two items.
Okay, well, the clarity of the board is just to affirm the charter and the purpose of why we are here. And let me see if I can share a screen here with you all. Let's give me 1 second. And if not, I will just read it. So I will just read this. Okay, the purpose and authority of the Oversight Committee is to convene quarterly or as needed to review progress on the projects detailed in the Lane Community College Bond Measure 20-306. The committee will review program progress and will monitor program spending and schedules. A written report describing program progress will be prepared following each committee. This report will be shared with the Board of Directors and will be published on the Lane Community College website.
Great. There were some questions about this issue at some of our earlier meetings, but that seems like a pretty clear statement of our charge.
Okay.
And our requirement to make a report. I will tell the committee that I met by phone with Chair. Oh boy, I'm going to mess up her name.
Fragola.
Chair Fragola. And we had a good conversation on a number of these points. She expects us to prepare, the board expects us to prepare a written report, as Marge has indicated. And because I made the mistake of asking for a clarification, she asked me to show up at a board meeting to answer questions. The rest of the members don't need to come. So that would be in addition to what Marge has read. Any questions about 1.03? If not, let's go on, and Tom is up for design and construction updates.
Sounds great. Thanks.
We should mention before we move on with the membership update that we have various members of term lengths that will be leaving this year. So do you want to mention that, Phil, or would you like me to continue?
Well, yes, as you recall, in January, we divided up the board based on staggered terms. So some people's term ends at the end of this year. Other people have a 2-year term, and others have a 3-year term. I think those who have a 1-year term need to let it be known if they would like to be reappointed. And I think this is a board appointment, isn't it? If it is, then the board will have to decide whether they want to reappoint people or whether they want somebody new. Have I got that correct?
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Yeah. So those with a 1-year, who have a 1-year term, need to decide pretty soon whether they actually want to come to the, receive updates in January and come to the April meeting. Tom?
I think what we'll do is we do have that list. We'll be reaching out on behalf of the board, or have the board reach out to those members that are 1 year, we're on the 1-year list, and have them ask whether they want to be renewed, and if they'd like to roll over for another term, which would be another, I believe they're 3-year terms. So at that point, we'll look at that and then have the board tally and prove or replace you if you so desire. So.
Right. Yeah, this is your chance to
You
get
can run now.
off or re-up. Right. All
So,
right. Any other questions about, any questions about that item? If not, let's go ahead then. And Tom, why don't you give us the design and construction updates?
okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. So hopefully you have that and I can make this all work properly. Have 3 major projects that are going on right now. The biggest one, or first one, is the Health Professions building that is here on the screen. That is the one new building out of the bond project that we have. We have spent a good share of the summer looking at programming it, defining what belongs in there, as well as looking at different alternative sites for the project. We have settled in on a site that is just on the north side of Building 6. Between Building 6 is the performance hall, between that and the fields, the athletic fields to the north. There are currently 2 buildings located there. One is the grounds maintenance building, and another is the performing arts storage building, which is, I believe, I'm told it's a World War II surplus Army barracks that is not in very great shape, but so we'll be relocating some of that stuff. Big reason we chose this site was that really cleans up that north face of the campus to provide this new building and create a new gateway, which is one of the master plan goals, to the north. Knowing that the north face is the most prominent public face between 30th Avenue and the activities that go on the athletic fields, it seemed like a wonderful opportunity to kind of refresh the campus image, as well as create a new gateway, which was both of those were really important things in the master plan. Any particular questions on this project? Okay.
I don't see any.
I don't either. So let's see if I can page down. My next project, our Florence Center. This is out in the town of Florence. It's actually a couple of buildings, and for this project, we received a $1.5 million seismic grant from the state to help us with this project, to stabilize it for that portion of it. Along with it, it was built mostly in the 1970s, the main building. Building systems are original to it. Mechanical systems were failing rather dramatically. They've had very little work. Electrical systems are at the end of their life, as well as plumbing systems. So while we're doing the seismic upgrades, we're doing some pretty major overhauls of all of those building systems. With that extensive of a work, it also allows us a chance to look at doing some programmatic upgrades and cosmetic upgrades along with it. So this is about a 5 million, or about, total project is about 7.2 million. About 5 million of the bond funds in this. So we are now into the design development stage. So we've kind of pinned down this basic. We did come in, our initial budget estimates were within an appropriate range, which is really wonderful in considering the current construction climate. And we're now developing the design and looking at how to do add alternates. We've also selected a general contracting firm of Lease Crutcher Lewis to join us on this one, and they're putting together estimates as we speak. Well, maybe not this late in the evening, but working on that heavily.
I have a question.
Sure.
How many classes are running currently at this campus?
That's a great question. Right now, they don't have a whole lot due to COVID, most of it.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Marge?
There's a lot going on in Florence right now, believe it or not, a lot of planning. And right now, a lot of non-credit is being offered, and our general education is being virtually projected. But we're actually having conversations with the city manager, with the high school about identifying some premier career and technical education to go on in this building. Right now, we're looking at partnerships with Peace Health and possibly with Advanced Tech. So this is a good year to get the infrastructure, as Tom alluded to, set up, because then we're looking to bring, the focus is career and tech ed, because the liberal arts, they can get on the internet, they can get on the remote, but they can't get the career and tech. So very little now, because if you know, I know you know, but we're mostly remote on all of our campuses right now.
Yeah, and I think that it's a kind of a unique situation out there that it's a community, and a lot of their students are in the older generations, shall we say, do a lot of community activities out there. Some of their biggest programs serving the community use the art spaces. They have kilns and pottery and various art classes. So that's a very active piece, and has been throughout the pandemic time, that they've been able to use those spaces still and fire things in the kiln and things like that. And they also do a lot of partnership with the high school. Throughout the pandemic, they were using some of the classrooms for space for students for the high school. So that help?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions about this project?
I take it that most of what you're doing are the things that have no, that don't show up anywhere. Water, sewage, electrical systems, internet connections, and those kind of things. The building may not look very different when you're all done. That's what it sounds like. Is that right, or have I missed it somehow?
Well, I hope it looks a little better, because we're going to strip this thing down to do the seismic and give it a little more than a fresh coat of paint and some carpet, but and we are going to reconfigure it just a little bit. Marianne, I see you have your hand up.
I do. Tom, the Florence, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Florence major maintenance was budgeted. God, this print is so tiny. Is it $7,250,000? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and then And again, this is from July, my information.
Yep.
Here's my question. Marge, or Tom, you just said that, help me understand what we do out in Florence other than offering art programs. I thought that Marge had just said that you were hoping to encourage more vocational training out there.
Correct.
There always has been vocational training. They have been using it in the nursing and medical assisting programs pretty heavily before the pandemic hit. They were doing a lot of that type of work out there, as well as doing other outreach classes. Some of the things we're looking at doing with this some reconfiguration is also provide more remote rooms where students that live on that side of campus can gather, or on that side of the county can gather and either attend virtually a class as a group that might be being held on the main campus. We're talking about that with a couple of spots. And there's definitely some interest in that they can co-teach. And one of the things that's been noted is that when we get out to the coast, many of those people don't have reliable internet, so that for them to be able to come to the campus that does have reliable internet is a great addition. And they can also then use some of those rooms for counseling, so they don't have to drive all the way into Eugene, academic counseling, meetings with staff and faculty as well. So it's a pretty active, and as I'm working on other programs, I'm also hearing more and more programs that want to stretch their programs out there when they come back. Science classes that want to be able to use it as a coastal environment for so or those kind of things. And not a full-time class necessarily, but augment their existing courses.
So you're also hoping to finish that project by October 22. Are you still on track for that?
Running a little slower than that. Supply chains getting us on our mechanical systems in particular.
Yeah, that's true.
So it could be January 23 is what I was talking with the design team about today. So.
Okay, and that 7.25 million includes the 1.5 seismic grant.
Correct.
Is that work being done?
Yes, the seismic work will be done. That's one of the big drivers.
So is it being done?
We are in the design phase right now. We will break ground. We're looking at breaking ground in April, actually mobilizing with the contractor and doing things in April. So we're currently in the design phase to finalize that.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
No problem.
while we're on that topic, I have to apologize that I don't know where this building is. Is it in the tsunami zone?
Yes, it is.
Boy. So are we doing anything to deal with that issue?
Oh my God, do we own that property?
We do.
Well, funny you should ask. It's an interesting deed, Mary Ann, that we are now having the Florence attorney, City of Florence, and our attorney review the title on it. The way it was explained to me is and again, this I'm trying to understand this myself, but the city owns it, but we are the owner of record as the college. So it's a joint partnership, and the two attorneys are going to try to clean it up. The intention is that we mutually agree on how it's being used. And I think that was the spirit of it, so that we don't go off and just do something that isn't going to benefit the city.
It's located right adjacent to the high school. So the properties abut each other. So.
Claire?
Anyway, okay.
I have a quick question. This is Claire. I'm wondering if there's a legend to all of your color coding, and if that could be added to the drawings in the future. I don't need it to be added to this one right now, but that would help us read the drawings.
Appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to move on to the final project, the final large project that we have moving forward. We're just beginning the early phases of this project. The design team started, really, we kicked off about a month ago. So we've been diving into this. This is a major renovation of Building 12, which is our industrial and trades center. One of the larger footprint buildings on the campus. Again, we'll be doing seismic upgrades as a critical part of this that we're looking at. It currently houses the machine an apprenticeship program. So there's a large machine shop where we teach how to use CNC machines, lathes, things like that. It has general apprenticeship classrooms, has our construction trades shops in it. It also has a couple of empty spaces in it that were used for auto body. And it is currently also housing our public safety group, which was put in there temporarily because the trailers that they were in were falling apart, essentially. We're looking at where to relocate them right now. I'm working on a program for that. This program, it is the largest single project overall in the bond effort. Going to be in the range of $32 to $36 million by the time we get equipment and everything together in it. It is one of the wonderful things I think that's going on with this is in conjunction with the design of this building, the academic side has taken the heavy lift of looking at industrial and trades education for Lane County and at Lane Community College and really upgrading that as well. So looking at it from the pedagogy, how should they deliver this? It's a great opportunity before we build a building that they think about how they want to teach in the future. Been reaching out to a lot of industry partners. They've had some really good response from them, as well as students and other communities and professionals. So it's an interesting piece that is just starting. One of the other things we're looking at doing is, I talked about the entry from the south coming in, upgrading that. We're looking at developing an entry from the east side of campus too. And one of the interesting things that came up in all of our user group interviews over the last month was that people really appreciated that because they felt the industry and trade should have what I've referred to a little more dignity than being on the back side of campus right now. And so that the impetus to dress up the building, to clean it up, to make that a more formal entry rather than that backside, and it is something that virtually every group brought up something in that manner. So it's a really nice way to put it, and we're going to do that. Clean up the building, stabilize it, modernize it, and that. So there'll be a lot more to come on that, but comments or questions?
Would you tell us what that's called on the sheet called the quarterly status report?
This is the Building 12 major maintenance.
Building, well, I'm not seeing it. That's my problem. I'm just
It's
obviously.
about halfway down the sheet.
It's the 36 million.
Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Yep.
I got it. And there's a bunch of green buttons, which is a good sign.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I should actually go, the health professions building is one, in disclosure, that is one that the budget is not looking as promising. We're looking at cleaning that up. There's some added scope with that I wasn't sure was going to be in it with the added, the development of that north entry to the campus, which I was expecting to do out of other money pots. So I'm not too concerned about that. But that one, the construction, there's a lot of raw materials in that and the cost of steel and wood. Wood you might have heard about a little bit over the last year. It really shot up in prices. So that is one of a concern. I see Jennifer's hand.
Yeah, Jennifer. You're on mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, I just looked it up. The Florence campus actually isn't in a tsunami inundation zone, and we can include a map with our minutes. So
I think you just said it's not in the tsunami zone.
correct.
Great. That is relieving, frankly.
Yes.
Glad to
Yes.
hear it.
In
Yeah.
fact, it's identified as one of the higher properties in Florence. You know, in terms of being in the tsunami zone, yes, it is. All of Florence and all of the coast is in the tsunami zone. But according to geological studies and topographic studies done by OSU, it is well without the inundation zone.
Thank you, Roger. That's a great explanation.
I see Alan's hand up.
Hi, yes, and I think I'm off mute. So I have a easy question and a broad question. We just got my wife's pickup truck repaired. Somebody backed into it. It was a beautiful classic, and the guy who repaired it did an incredible job, and he ranted and raved about the experiences he had over at LCC in that auto body training that you guys used to have. So I just want to make that observation. There's people out there who really wish you're still doing that. My other question is broader though, and that's you're talking about, I think the current tech explosion that we're dealing with, of course, is well, it's a good media event as well as everything else these days, but you talk about bringing industry in to chat about what you guys are wanting to do. Are you getting good feedback from industry about what they want in terms of changing careers or trades or job skills?
Yeah, quite a bit. As a matter of fact, we're doing community conversations. The foundation is sponsoring, bringing them in one sector at a time. And then the dean, some faculty, myself, a couple of us, we all sit and we have a conversation. And in this particular advanced tech field, there's a lot that they're telling us. We've got to catch up. Period. And we've also got to make shorter stackable programs. These folks can't afford to spend 2+ years to go out and do a lot of these jobs. So if we make shorter certificate stackable, they can come, go out, work, come back, go back. And then also we could have the various certificates that the employers want. So they're working with us, Alan. They're telling us what they want. And examples are, it's good that we have the basic lathes and all that, but we need to get into electronics and mechatronics and step it up, because that's what manufacturing is going to need, and the robotics field. So we're continuing to talk with them. You're never done. We have to keep, because things are changing so much. So thank you for asking that.
Thank you. I like to hear that, especially about stackable programs. Is the State Scholarship Commission, they call it something else now, OSAC, are they working with you folks to try to figure out how to stack their scholarships in more minute ways as well? I'm taking this astray, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm not as familiar with I'll talk to our foundation about that for scholarships.
That's a fantastic question.
Thanks a lot. It's really great to hear what you're doing.
Thanks.
Other questions for Tom?
Mary Ann?
Tom, I have a quick question, and I may know the answer. With these projects, can you go to the subs that you have lined up and ask them to secure a price for materials for when those materials come in? I know their pricing is dependent on every other thing, but this is a large state job. And I'm wondering if there's any leverage like that.
And that is what we're doing. Again, we're in the design process right now, so we don't have things pinned down, but that is part of, we're using a CMGC on all 3 of these projects. So that is a big part of it, that we're getting them to get commitments. They're out there talking to various trades and getting preliminary price points. And we do ask them, will they hold it or when do we need to commit? When we commit, can we And the other thing, because one of the things I've learned over the years is, will you commit to no higher than that? Because sometimes that commodity of steel or lumber drops, and you don't want to just say, will you commit to that price? Because they may say, I'd love to commit, because they know it's about to drop.
But yeah, offer a cap, but
Yeah.
also, yeah, that's all. It's also volatile right now, but it seems like there's got to be a way to control this stuff or get a commitment. Or are you on a priority list for vendors?
Yeah, and that's where we're trying to get the right people, getting, some of it is getting some of the contractors, they're larger regional contractors that have a little bit more pull because they do a lot of projects and can reach out to the vendors, and there's enough
That's great.
activity.
I'm sorry to go sideways, but it's
Nope, that's great.
this supply chain stuff, we've got to get a handle on it. And I mean, I know it's a national issue, but
Yeah. Ellen, I see your hand up still. Did you have something else, or?
There I go.
But Mary Ann has her hand up now. And she's on mute, so we.
sorry, I'm pushing buttons wrong. I'm finished. Thanks for answering my question.
Okay, great.
Other questions?
So if that's it, I think the next thing on the agenda
Your update, manager's update.
is my
Quarterly
manager's,
status report.
my quarterly status report, which I realize this is, and I'm going to
Almost
see,
impossible to read.
almost impossible to read at this. And I apologize for that, but I'd rather talk about it in a larger sense here because yep.
I'm sorry, if it's on 61% though, if you just hit the pluses, you can probably get yours to expand at the top. In the center, there you go.
Right in the middle of the, there you are, right.
Okay,
right there.
sorry, there's something. There it is. It was covered by another.
Got it.
Covered by other windows on my personal screen, so.
Well, I also downloaded it and then expanded it on my screen so I can actually read it, but the whole thing doesn't fit on the screen then.
Yeah.
So, it's one way or the other.
So in a general sense, some things that I've done here, black were changes that I made last quarter that I sent things out, some minor things. Red is things that I changed since the last time it was issued. I'll continue to do that in the future. I'll change what's now red to black, turn things in this so that you can highlight this a little easier, hopefully, as we go through it. Going through here, under the Bond 2020 Health Professions Building, you'll notice a red mark in there that is groundskeeping and performing arts study storage relocation. That is based on the site selection. We're going to have to relocate those programs. So I'm breaking it out as a sub-project so I can track those costs. But I do see it as a direct cost to, it is because of that building that it is a cost. So I'm kind of tracking those two together. You'll notice that budget is a red triangle. And it is because things came in, my initial budget came in too high. I've got the design team working very diligently to, they overprogrammed some things. They got scolded. We had to cut back some of the wish list from the program, from programs themselves to get it back down to the right square footage. And then there's a little bit of site work that I mentioned because we're going to develop this new entryway, which I had planned in other budget pots in here. And then the construction volatility. When we did our conceptual programming, we did that about the peak of the lumber in steel pricing. So and our estimators were not willing to back down on that, but they were honest and say that that drove it. And they were very fearful of pricing changes. So I understand that as a person who's been managing projects in construction for a lot of years. I understand that. We're going to keep an eye on it for the future. Another project that's breaking out as a sub-project is under the Building 15 major maintenance. You see another project that's in red there, public safety programming and site selection. In the master plan, in the original bond work, it was thought that public safety would go into Building 15. I mentioned that it's in Building 12 now, and it has to move out of there for the tech program to really be pulled off. One of the problems with the master plan is they didn't do a lot of programming to understand the needs of public safety. So we're going to look at the Building 15 site along with a couple others, as well as really, I've got an architect on board diving in to understand what the public safety needs are so that we can make sure it's the right site and choose a site. So if that does not go into Building 15, we're still going to do upgrades to Building 15 and get it seismically stable and take care of the other deferred maintenance, but want to make sure we're putting the right programs in there. So. At the bottom of the page, it's actually not in red, but I did include a little bit more about the total, how I've got funding allocated out of the total funding in place and allocations. So right now, I've got almost 128 million allocated in this sheet here across different programs. It's actually a little bit more than 137 right now because we've got a little bit of interest. But overall, what it comes down to of the bond fundings, I have just over 86% of that allocated. So I have a little under 15% as a contingency factor, which is an appropriate amount, I feel, for a program here. So with that, I'm going to stop, and I see hands raised. So I'm going to go to Brad first because he looks like he had his hand up first.
Yeah, this is just, one of those real nitty-gritty technical questions. As you look at the schedule and the amounts you're spending, is someone within the college, I hope, working on your arbitrage requirements to make sure that your spending rate is going to meet those requirements?
Yeah, we're watching on it, and I'll be honest again, the arbitrage is, we were supposed to have 90 million spent in 3 years. We've been talking with our bond counsel considerably about that, and they all agree that this little situation in the world over the last couple of years is understandable. We're working on writing some things up on it. And I will say, it's been a challenge from the industry because it's gone a little slower. And our administration has had a lot of other things to do. I think Marge would have much rather spent the last year and a half focusing on this than everything else she's had to do. But it's made it a little harder to move forward quickly. And I'd like to think that we'll get a better value because we have this experience of remote learning. And it's been one of the things that, as we talk about things, we're going to approach fixing up classrooms differently. Mm-hmm. We probably would have when we started 2 years ago.
Right.
So.
Right. No, again, I appreciate that answer. That helps.
I'm trying to be open.
I know.
Tom, how close are we going to get to that number? You know?
I'd like to think we're going to be really close on having it all encumbered at that point.
Okay.
Spending and encumbering it are two different things technically. But with the major projects, we're going to be really close to that.
So does bond council think we're going to get some consideration from the?
Yeah,
Fed?
they are not too worried about it.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
we talked to them. We've been talking to them for a year on that and continue to do that. Mary Ann.
Thanks, Brad, for bringing that up. I hadn't thought of it. Mary Ann?
Who did you just say you've been talking to for the last year? The feds?
The bond council,
Okay, the bond
Which-
council. Okay.
which
okay.
we have our own lawyers, the ones that helped us put together the paperwork and are overseeing that legal side and help put that together and represent.
I understand.
the-
So the 137 bond funding in place, right? I thought you said it was a little bit higher than the 137 on this line I'm looking at. Look, I'm pointing to it.
Yeah, 137 is what it is. We've had some interest and I have not updated.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's what I heard. And what
Yeah.
kind of interest does the bond money accrue? At what rate?
I should have that. It is,
I'm looking for that too, Mary Ann. We had originally been told that when we sold the bonds, it was 18 million. So let me,
we got a premium, and
yeah.
if you bear with me, I can.
Yeah.
Because I do have that in my
Sitting there.
in my inbox. I don't have it. They're in some various funds, so let me
Yeah,
find the right.
I understand the complexity of my question. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, and I don't need to learn about it right here, right now.
Mary Ann, we could, I'm sure there's others that are interested. We'll do
Yeah.
a little fiscal accounting of this and obviously we'll do it with bond counsel because they guide us through all of this. So, it's, since you're representing the public, the community would be interested too.
Also, I would just say, and everybody knows this, the whole world knows that COVID has affected us in lots of ways. I've grown weary of talking about, the last year and a half, it's kind of messed with us. Everybody knows that. Although it's good to remind everybody that the supply chain has been directly affected by all sorts of stuff, not to mention COVID. So it's like everybody's in the same boat, which is the good thing.
Yeah,
If there is a good thing about that, everybody knows it.
It affects every one of us, from trying to get new carpet to trying to get a really big job put together.
Yep. And I think people are understanding.
Yeah.
And Tom, when you put that together, would you include the short form definition of arbitrage and why it's important? Because I know there are members of this committee who have no idea what we're talking about. And it would be nice to make sure that they do.
Sure. We'll do a little fact sheet.
Thank you. That'd be very helpful.
Yeah. We'll get that in by the next packet for sure. So let's see. So any other questions on the status report? I could go into more projects, but
Tom, real quick, you used the acronym CMGC as some kind of best standard. What did that stand for?
that stands for Construction Manager General Contractor.
Oh, okay.
And the difference is that rather than putting together a set of documents and putting it out for anybody to bid on, for a construction manager, we hire them more. There's some pricing in it, but it's more based on their qualifications and experience. And then we utilize them to go forward. Brad, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just had a question. What's the role of the day CPM folks in the overall process? Are they acting as CMGCs or just advisors on schedule and cost, or what?
Well, that goes on to my next piece, to be honest with you. So I'm going to say.
Can you bring down the share? Can you take the share off? Thanks.
Stop share. There we go.
Thank you.
So, when I go in, first off, let's close out that one piece and make sure we're done with that before we move on to the next line item on the agenda. Make sense, Roger or Phil? So.
So what do you want to do, Tom?
So I'll move on to what is the, figure out what was called the capital construction updates. And that was more of a narrative and some things. I'll specifically address Brad's question. One of the things that we're doing is putting together a best practices manual. We brought in Day CPM and Joshua. Now I've forgotten, it's Joshua Dodson, suddenly ran out. They do a lot of what's called an owner's representative work. Been doing that around the Pacific Northwest and in the Oregon area for a lot of years. Our chief, one of our financial officers has worked with him in the past, and he suggested we bring him in just to take a look at things and make sure we're doing things right, I guess, just to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. He did a quick overview, and we decided that it would be helpful for myself, our staff, our financial group to put together a best practices manual for this before we got too far down the road. Just reminding us of what the legal ramifications are, what the state requirements are, make sure we're putting things out and bidding properly, all of those kind of things. He's found a few things that we can do better. Looking at the best way to do that. Whether I'm hoping to be able to keep Joshua and his team around as an advisor to back us up, maybe help us implement some better systems for managing our paperwork and our budget. One of the joys of Lane right now, we have a very, very, very lean staff. So how they can help us and help us get the right people is one of the things I'm talking to them about. And I've had some conversations with Marge and my boss Jennifer and our financial people about how we want to do that best. But it's why I listed in here is that I think it's important for you, this group in particular, to understand that we're still figuring out how to do this right too. And I hope you'll bear with us on that. Claire?
Can you just repeat who ACPM? I'm assuming that's an organization that does project management.
Is that?
Did I mishear? I thought you said that you hired.
Oh, Day
somebody?
CPM. Yes, it is a project management and owner's representative company. It is a consultant group.
Okay.
Day CPM is. Sorry. Yeah.
So will that organization have any insight into how we can get broader representation in our hiring practices for design and construction firms? Is that part of their mandate? I'm just trying to think of how the community agreements are ever going to get wrapped in.
Yeah, it is. They're
huge projects.
Yeah, they are. That is part of what they're looking at, and some of the things that they have a lot of experience with other agencies and large air agencies, and in particularly a number of agencies in the Portland area that have similar types of community benefit agreements. So how to work that in. Most of the community benefits agreements come in are directed more at the trades during construction. And I think we're doing reasonably well with that. We don't have trades on board yet is one of the problems, but it's actually been one of the advantages of the construction manager approach is that they can go target specific types of trades and local trades a little easier than a bid where it really drives you to whatever that lowest number is. You have to, you really kind of have to take it if you want to be low bidder. So it's one of those unique things.
Well, I appreciate that because I think that you guys have an extraordinary amount of details and work on your plates. And it's, when you say lean, I mean, it's, the department is skeletal. And so anything that will bring more sort of big picture thinking so that you're not trying to do little work and big picture work at the same time, I think is going to benefit all of these projects.
All right. Thank you for the understanding. That I need that sometimes. So.
Did you have other comments on the schedule?
Other things on my manager's update. I delivered a bunch of project charters last quarter. Talk to you about most of those projects moving forward right now. Looking at more things coming up. I've given you a list here, just more things to expect. A lot on my plate, our team's plate. We're moving fast and furious, and trying to make that goal that Brad brought up of get this money spent. And while we're also trying to keep our sanity so we don't burn anybody out. So
and spend it in a way that's going to benefit the community in the long run. I mean, all of these are somewhat contradictory, aren't they?
In ways they are. And I'd like to think, back to our first meeting where I said, I put those goals together and it's really about trying to serve the students is how I want to prioritize things, make them safe, address things. I do want to say from a staffing level, I did, the first hire we had for the bond project was to be my financial and administrative assistant. That person has left. So we have a new, we're out on the street looking to rehire that position. So part of life moves on.
Yeah.
Marianne, I see your hand again.
I'm trying to think how to say this, and I want everybody to understand that my position is that I'm a community member. So, and I understand you're running lean, mean, skeletal. Lots of businesses are. This is common. It's a shit show right now in the world. So who we answer to is every one of those voters who voted to pass this bond. And so I need help with that messaging as best as can be possible. And you can hear from my position, and I hear it from other people's position. Everybody knows about COVID. We all know. Explaining the supply chain is also, it's people go, oh yeah, I heard about those boats there in San Diego. So if you're not in business, then you don't understand that this thing has gotten really constipated across the nation. So I just want to keep a heads up display that who we report to is the community. That's it. That's all.
Totally agree.
And if I could just add, I think that's what this committee is about. I mean, we have, technically we report to the board, but the reality is that we're here to represent the community. And thank you, Marianne, for reminding us of it.
Brad, I see your hand up too.
Yeah, this is sort of a related comment, and it's not necessarily about the bonds and the process that you're managing, but it's, I think, a much broader view of how does the board, the LCC's board, get educated about the need to put money into facilities yearly, because some of the expenses that you're now going through are the results of deferred maintenance or poor maintenance. So if we're trying to be good stewards of public funds, spending money all of a sudden to bring things up to a standard that you can't ever then maintain and let it run downhill again doesn't seem responsible. So I guess my question is there a role for this committee to make that kind of concept something aware that the board should be aware of? Now, having said that and been in public service, I know that dollars are short and everybody wants, and it's a fight for it, but there becomes a point where how do you with good faith go out with a bond again, in the future to rehab things that you didn't take care of? It's not a criticism, it's just a fact of how the world is, period.
I see Marge's hand up, so I appreciate that.
Well, this is my favorite topic, and this is where I go out on the road, as we say. And let me tell you, the board is doing their lion's share to get it done. It's bigger than our local board. Trust me. This is a lot of allocation to the community colleges. You talk about 17 community colleges, and they're all as old as us, right? We just passed our 50th birthday. Most of what Tom is seeing are original buildings with concrete that's disintegrating. So this is serious stuff, and it's unimaginable that we had to even ask for this much money, and still it isn't going to cover it all. So I totally agree with you, Brad, on what you're saying, but in defense of all the boards before us, even, they did their best. There's just so much, because at the end of the day, you still have to heat the place, pay for teachers, and what I do now is when I talk to my colleagues and our folks in Salem, I say, think about deferred maintenance across these colleges. At least look how lucky we are. We've got a bond. Imagine if you live down in Umpqua, my colleagues down there, they can't pass a bond to save themselves, so I feel very lucky we got this, but the messaging, the messaging comes right out of this. You don't have to say anything. The reports that you write will show how deep Tom has to go to fix, like building 12 ATC, like literally, he said he's got to go down to the studs, right? Because there's so much needs repair. So I think the reports that y'all give will speak for themselves. And I take this at a larger scale when I talk to folks about funding community colleges, that, we need more than just operational money to run this college. We also have to figure out how to repair buildings that are 50 plus years old. I don't know if you know, but we're allowed to, every 4 years, we're allowed to ask for 8 million. Ask Tom how far that's going to go. That's all we're allowed to ask for. So it's an interesting setup. We're doing the best we can with what we have. But my takeaway is, yes, we do have to put a little bit more away for routine maintenance so that he doesn't have to fuss with that.
You're talking about a structural problem with the way we fund institutions in Oregon. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's really not the charge of this committee, but just simply to note that when Measure 5 and 47 and 50 passed, that cut the legs out from under the capacity of schools, including the community colleges, from being able to do these kinds of things on their own. It's very difficult. The one thing that being able to raise money through a bond the way Lane Community College has done is that it comes outside of the limitations established by Measures 5 and 50. This, unfortunately, I hate this, but I'm an expert on this topic because it's why I ran for this Eugene School Board many years ago and why I ran for the legislature. We can complain to the board about management problems. And I didn't hear Brad say that, so I'm not going to accuse him of saying that. But the reality is that the people of Oregon have decided to set it up this way. And that means that this kind of thing is going to continue happening until we get a better financing system. That's probably more than I should have said.
Alan, I see your hand up.
Yeah, you guys went and pushed another button of mine. As a retired communication officer for the university and all that kind of junk. Conversations build stakeholders. That's what my older boy said to me the last week. And I think you guys are doing extraordinary work without the staff that you need. And I've lived in education most of my life, and so I have strong opinions about it. And I'm glad to be on this committee. I just want to encourage you to keep getting media into this. You've got all these media opportunities. Get people out there taking pictures of it. I'm going to go poke at my local Cottage Grove people again to pay more attention to you. I've already been poking at our high school media class for them to start paying attention to this stuff. We all need to reach out by ourselves and nudge everybody else we know about to build conversations so that our community investment can grow out of our citizens. We got a bunch of dumb citizens who are sitting on their recliners these days. Anyway, that's my opinion.
I think those points are really, really, really valid. And the last 4 or 5 comments have come right down to the fact that, a lot of the issues that Brad brought up are societal as well as institutional in the state of Oregon. And it's pretty obvious that, from the tone of this committee and so on, we're wearing out our human infrastructure from the board on down, trying to solve these problems and cope with them on a regular basis. And the reason I'm talking right now is, Phil, I think that this kind of comment needs to be repeated to the board and ask the board to do what they can to communicate the feelings of this committee to those people who would limit us to inappropriate or unrealistic aspirations. Measures 50 and 5 and 4 and all of those things that just clobbered us. But it's also the reluctance of the taxpayers to fund anything except firefighters and policemen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're way off the agenda, and we could spend the rest of the evening on this, and I would be happy to do it. But I think and I agree completely, Roger, with what you just said, and with what Brad said and other people. But can we go ahead and get back to Tom's reports? I think he's got a couple more to go, don't you, Tom?
Okay, Alan, your hand's up. Do you want to take that down, or do you have a parting shot?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm still learning this stuff. Go away. Bye-bye.
Okay. Where were we here? I think if I'm going to see if I can share my screen again, if I can figure out how to do this again. Maybe. Bear with me, because I moved a bunch of bars and I can't find them anymore. But maybe I can. Here we go. Let me try this again. Let's see. Share that.
Oopsie, there you go.
So do you see a map now?
Yes.
All right, I did the right thing. That's nice to know. I put this together just to give you kind of everybody a clue, kind of some of the areas that we're looking at. The items in blue we've talked about.
Wow.
I'll scroll up a little bit. The Health Professions Building will be covering this zone up here between Building 6 and the fields. Building 12 is this big blue blob here. We're looking at kind of this big zone around it, trying to clean all that up. Building 15, I've talked about a little bit. That is seismic and programmatic upgrades to it. That's one of them on my list. Building 16, it's a rather large building that needs seismic upgrades as well as science labs, which when I walked into those science labs, it was, I think those were new when I might have taken science in high school. So they're due for some help. We're going to try and do something there. Alan, your hand's up again. Did you have something to say?
Oh, forget me.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Couple other things. Building 7, which is our operations building, needs some seismic upgrades. We're going to be looking into that. Building 3, which is where our administration all hangs out and Marge's office is. You know, we need to do some seismic upgrades to that one. Be nice to do. We also have Building 2, which has seismic upgrades, which houses our data center. These are studies we're going to look at. We're going to try and figure out soon and figure out how to upgrade those as best as we can. I see Phil slapping his forehead against his head there. Have a couple other things that I'm going to look at. This what I call the Forum Plaza in South Entry, seismic upgrades as well as entry and some life safety things in there as far as access, because it's really challenging to get emergency vehicles into some of those areas the way it is. And this other, the Bristow Square in this zone around it is also, to me, that is a critical path of doing some improvements there. If there were some sort of an active harmer on this campus or a fire or something like that, those are the things as an architect that keep me up at night for the campus. So I just wanted to share this with you and let you, get an understanding of kind of the big picture. Of course, there's classroom upgrades that are going to hit every one of these buildings. Other maintenance and energy improvements that I hope to get to a lot of these buildings as well. But when you take that spreadsheet of all the projects and put it into this graphic format, there's some translation between them that's going to take a little bit of time. So I hope you guys will bear with me as I move forward. Brad, I see your hand again.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm assuming that LCC has an EOC, Emergency Operations Center. Is that going to be in a building that's seismically upgraded, or is it already?
Well, you might have assumed too much there.
Okay.
We have our public safety group. They are in building 12. That has not had seismic upgrades on it, and there are concerns with the roof structure. So that is why I said before, I mentioned I wanted to do programming about what the needs for that facility were and why. It's things like that. But a year into it, I'm starting to understand more of the issues. We'll see where it goes.
I have just a quick question, and that is, this is Claire.
Yep,
and
Claire.
I'm wondering if with some of these larger projects that are going to have more of a public face from what's now a parking lot, if there's going to be some different kinds of wayfinding. I know we did a big wayfinding and program analysis a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, to try and understand how people access and move through campus and making it more comfortable for students to actually be on campus and stay on campus when they come. And I'm wondering if any of that information and knowledge that was surfaced is going to be integrated into some of these.
Yes, very much so. And again, that's driving some of these, why I discovered some of these other things. And I'll say, while these shaded green and blue areas, they show us a little gap, I intend to not do that wherever possible and connect those more so in a realistic, so they are continuous, but getting those entry points, hierarchies of entries, hierarchies of pathways. And it was reading some of those reports that I started walking them, and I realized, how would I direct a fire truck in here?
Wow.
Where's a fire hydrant? Where would I go if there was an active harmer? Those are things that I've dealt with on campuses in the past, and lead me to change some of those initial thoughts and package them into some bigger programs like that I'm proposing here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding this diagram? Do you folks see a schedule up on the screen now? Good. It's working. I love it when Zoom works. This is some of the major projects, and I could zoom in a little bit here to give you a clue as to where we're starting to overlap. Tried to keep them in the same order on each project. Health professions. We're looking at 2 phases of construction. One is to get some early procurement so we can buy things early and get them moving. We're looking at doing that, probably starting that in April or May, and then actually breaking ground in June as school lets out. We may be doing a little bit of pre-work before that, but June of 2022 is where we're looking at actually serious earthwork starting to happen on that project. Next project is the Florence Center. Again, we're looking at trying to get things moving here, getting our contracts put together come March, April or so, and then starting construction probably in April, where we'll make sure we'll hold some of our classrooms offline, work for most 9 months to a year is where that's looking at in order to balance things. And part of the duration of that extends out because we do want to keep the facility functional at some level throughout it. There are 2 different primary buildings, and we're working in both of them. So we'll probably move a group of programs over to one building and then move some things back and forth. We're still struggling on how to pull that one together. Building 12, this is a big project. It's, as I said, this is over $30 million in work. Because we have active programs in there, one of them being machine technology, which has these large machines that I really don't want to move more than once. Very complex machines, not good for them to move them very much and not inexpensive too. We're looking at doing this probably in 2 to 3 construction packages in order to move people around. Currently have a CMGC request for proposals out on the street. When we get that group involved, they're going to work very closely with the design team, with our academic team to try and figure out how we can move people, bounce people around. One of the challenges we have with a lot of these projects is how do we move people? Health professions, we're trying to figure out when we move the dental clinic without impacting, activities. Machinery is going to be a big one because what are we going to do and how do we take that down, set it up in a new spot? You don't do that overnight or over a 2-week or 1-week break of a holiday break. So complex questions we're looking at. I list the public safety relocation here. Talked about trying to do a program and concept. I've got an architect working on that with public safety. I'm hoping to have that roughly in January to have that response. I have a feeling it's going to take a couple of months of internal discussions to make sure we get the right place before we move on and actually design that and get it implemented. Public safety has virtually all the same requirements of a police station. It has evidence that it holds. It has all kinds of safety and protocols and security screens. They left me with all the easy projects, so we're going through that. On the fun side of things, I have a couple other projects that we're looking at. One is a workforce and career development center. We're looking at putting that in the lower floor of building 4, which is currently houses our archives. It's a rather front door location and maybe not a prime use for it. One of the things in the bond that was really brought up was having more career and workforce. And the point of this would be, we jokingly refer to it as kind of the Apple bar of career and workforce. So whether you're a potential student, an existing student, I'm thinking of doing this type of a career, can you help me? Or who would I get a job with? An employer might come here and say, hey, I'm looking for this. And students that are here, how do we place them with companies? Companies can come here and do outreach as well. So we're really formulating that, combining some existing programs, developing some new ones, but one that is purely, I mean, that's really student focused. So those are my hot items this month. So comments or questions? Boy, I'm doing too good here. I've left you speechless.
You are doing well, and just a comment is, you do seem to have these, the plans and then the execution of the plans spread out in a way that you don't have too many balls in the air at the same time. And I'm assuming that was intentional.
I'm trying, the best laid plans work that way. The best laid execution doesn't always. I see Mary Ann's hand up again.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to ask a blunt question. Was it ever thought about just to demo building 12, start from the beginning? And let me tell you, there are ways to move heavy equipment, and it can happen with a cost, and it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. We're studying the building and looking at it, and I don't know that it saves money. I mean, it's certainly a piece we'll be looking at. I know that in talking, I've been in Eugene for 15 months. There's a lot of, and I think others have brought this up, there's a lot of pride in the history of Lane. And it is a really interesting building. Not a reason to save it, but I don't know that new construction is going to be any cheaper by the time we tear it down and replace it. There's a lot of complications with that. It has our central plant in it on the one end. So it's a surgical act to work with, but it's.
And I understand, I mean, you're too far down the road on this thing to consider that, but, and I wasn't part of that planning, but anyway, it's building 12, isn't it $36 million?
Between equipment and furnishings and the overhead and the building, yeah, that's what we've got budgeted for it. It's a lot of equipment as well. It's a big building.
As a community member, and I understand that you were speaking to sentiment among the community. I speak to people within the community, and I think there's a lot of people that would have said, geez, for $36 million, tear it down, start again, make it homogeneous with the existing architecture. That I'm just saying that this is what I hear. This is what I hear. And we have a company. We just remodeled the plant in Glenwood for $2.5 million. It's state of the art. Tons of heavy equipment. 15,000 square feet. Anyway, that's getting off topic. But how.
It is something that we will look at as we get into it. I mean, it's a balance of programming, and there are things when we get into it. I have done that in the past, and there's a point where you just go, it makes no sense to fight this thing, and do we strip it out and do something else, Or is there another site and we clean this up and restore it? But those aren't free things either. We can't walk away from the property. Or
I understand
sell
the
it off.
complexity of what I'm presenting.
Let me say it a different way, Tom, and see if you agree with this. I think what you're discussing with Mary Ann is the possibility that you might remove the building and build a new one rather than remodel the one you have now. Is that a fair interpretation of your statement?
Yes, I think we'll be looking at that. I expect to look at that as part of our early design phase and programming.
My
Because
son
there's a lot of
bought
challenges.
my son bought a very old house that he was going to remodel. And he ended up hauling it off the lot and building a new one because it was a lot cheaper.
Yeah,
So I understand what Mary Ann is raising. I have no idea if she's right or not. I don't know.
I don't know either. That's why I'm going to look at it. So, any other questions on the schedule from anybody? And with that, then, I think, Phil, I've covered what I had to say.
So you've covered 3.04 as a part of all the others.
Yeah,
And so now we're down to community benefits agreements.
yeah,
Did
and
did you have comments to make about that issue?
not really, other than we're working on it with our CMGCs. As I mentioned before, it's really focusing on the trades, and we've actually had some really great, the two CMGCs we've hired, we're working with for Florence as well as for the health professions building. They've had some really great approaches, or talking some really great approaches to bringing in smaller contractors, local contractors, having fairs to get people involved. Yeah, the group out in Florence was really interested in, they were asking us if they thought it would be okay to use our project to promote community fairs for smaller trades, because one of the things they find out there is a lot of talented trades, but are on the coast, but they don't have commercial licenses and they can't use them on a commercial project. So if they can have a fair and promote with a good project, they can encourage and mentor groups. And both, that's Lease Crutcher Lewis, Fortis Construction is on the health professions, and they both have said they'd like to mentor, bring in smaller companies and use them. They mentor them. These guys break out bid packages to the proper size for some of the smaller companies. One guy was saying, they brought these younger or smaller companies in and they remind them that, hey, one day a week you should spend an hour on going out to your truck and straightening it out and getting rid of the trash. And that's part of it. You should be doing that during work hours, not over Sunday and Saturday when you should be at home with your family. So doing those kind of helpful things, showing them how to do paperwork, how to do the things that are required of a larger commercial contract. They're very interested in doing that. So to me, that's a win.
Sounds to me, Tom, as though that's part of the charge of Lane Community College. Even though we don't have a class in it, maybe.
We are, well, we do have trades education, but it's great when they take that on. A couple of the architects have done some of that too, where they brought in some smaller firms, partnered them with larger engineering or design firms, and again, being able to give a smaller firm a little extra bandwidth and a mentoring opportunity. So it's interesting the way companies are approaching it and trying to take our educational mission out to the community.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Claire, I think. Will you raise your hand this time?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with all of the focus on equity and inclusion across the country, it's really, I think it's really important for us to communicate that to these construction managers, general contractors, all the bidders, all the project managers, that we expect them to be responsive to equity and inclusion, and that we expect them to mentor and provide opportunities, and that their own staff, we expect their staff to include, at some level.
Yes.
And that's the only way that we ever are going to shift the conversation. So I appreciate the work on this, and I'm just calling it out so that it's on record in this meeting that it is a goal of Lane Community College to become a more equitable and inclusive organization. And thank you for that.
Good.
Other comments or questions on community benefits agreements? Thank you, Tom. This is, I had no awareness at all that you had contractors, major contractors who were willing to do that kind of work, and it's really wonderful. Next item, closing items. Future meeting dates, they're listed on the agenda. Quarterly email update in January, April meeting, April 18th, Zoom meeting, July 18th, another quarterly update, and October 17th, another Zoom meeting. This is the wrong time to discuss it, but I'm hoping that maybe we can have at least one meeting next year in person, but that may be me being optimistic. I don't know.
I will say that we should be mindful of our members who are not in the Eugene area, and having Zoom meetings is very beneficial for that. So that is something you consider moving forward.
And you're absolutely right about that, Myra. And one of the things that Lane Community College will certainly need to do in the next little bit is figure out how to do hybrid meetings, where some people are in person in a meeting room and others join by Zoom or some other system. I've participated in several of those already. The people who have the right control systems and the right hardware and the right person controlling how it's done are the ones who've done a successful meeting that way. I think your comment's right on.
See, Marge wants to talk to that item.
Oh, Marge, go, please.
Happy to report we can do it now. That will be how we phase our board back. Same way, Phil. So you're spot on, and we can do it. And I would be optimistic that in April we can be on campus with the ability to Zoom in anybody that is either too far away or can't come in for any reason.
Right. There's a lot of reasons why people might not be able to come in, and one of the wonders of the situation that we're in is that we found mechanisms like these Zoom meetings. I don't think we're ever going to stop using them, but we hopefully won't need to use them quite as much. So is there anything else that we need to discuss for closing items today? Tom, Marge, Mary, please.
I look forward to getting an email about those of us that signed up for a one-year commitment. And then Marge, I do look forward to hearing about a complicated question. Hopefully there's a simple answer to what interest the bond monies accrue while they sit before they're spent. You made mention of a financial fact sheet. I'm looking for, the famous elevator talking points. I would love that. So
yeah, Zach's in the room. Zach can tell us what he knows. He's our AVP for fiscal and budget analysis. And what he doesn't know, we'll make sure we put in. Zach, you had a little bit of interest information, correct?
Yeah, so for fiscal year 21, which ended on June 30th of this calendar year, we received $208,000 of interest, and the rate of return was 0.16%. So that would have been about a full year of having the bond funds. So, but what I can do is go back and look to see if the underwriter has provided us with a schedule or at least an estimate of out years.
So would you give the interest rate again? The number you gave?
0.16% was the rate of return.
Okay. So unless I misunderstand, we don't really run into an arbitrage problem because that's less than we're paying for the bond.
I'll come back and write up a summary of this and get into some of these more complex details in a written form and have that sent out.
Yeah, I mean, the point of the arbitrage rule is that people don't go out and get low interest loans as a non-taxable loan and then invest the money for a higher rate and pocket the difference. And it doesn't look to me like we're in that boat based on what you've just said. Anything else before we adjourn?
Mary Ann's hand up one more time.
Mary
here.
Ann, go.
Nope. Oh, she's muted, but she took her
her
hand up.
hand
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, eventually we will learn to put our hands down the moment we're recognized so that we don't do that. But Roger, you're up. You're on mute. Roger,
You're muted, Roger.
You're.
Perhaps
There you
that's the
go.
best thing that could happen.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment that, I'm certainly aware of how much work and how much time it takes to put together a meeting like this. And I appreciate everything that Tom and Mira and Zach and Marge have done to bring us together to talk about it. People like me like to dwell in detail all the time, and I think that's even more time consuming, but you've done a good job tonight. And I appreciate it. I think we all will.
Thank you. Tom, and if I can speak for the college, Tom is just been amazing. We're lucky we stole him from Colorado.
Excuse me while I blush.
Skiing's better there, but we have everything else better.
All right, well, we'll follow up with, I've got a full list of all the follow-up. We'll make sure we get this either to you now or when you come back.
And Marge, you and I will need to discuss our report to the board.
Very good. We will.
All right. Thank you all. This has been great. Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Marge. Thanks.
Sounds like we're adjourned.
All right, we're adjourned. All righty.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.